Hey, everybody. How are y'all doing? How are y'all doing in the middle of the week? Kind of feels like it too, but always exciting. Always great to hang out with you guys and have you guys in the chat with me and talking about and studying God's word. How's everybody doing? My name is Stuart Davis, flawed man of God, a humble parishioner at a small church just outside of Richmond, Virginia. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a biblical scholar. I haven't been to seminary. I'm not trying to get you to join my church or donate to any special cause. What I'm here to do is talk about God, the Holy Spirit, Jesus, talk about the Bible, Christianity, and a wide variety of different topics, issues, and current events, and give you my perspective on them, one that I think that is reflective of your average Christian guy. I've been a Christian all my life. 42 years, non-denominational Protestant. Don't subscribe to any particular doctrine or denomination, just in the word daily, trying to do it better each and every day. Sometimes I'll get it right. Sometimes I'll get it wrong, but no matter what, if you're listening to this stream, if you're hearing my voice, you can count on getting my honest takes on whatever it is that we are talking about. So if you're somebody who is new to Christianity or interested in learning about the faith, you're right there at the edge and ready to start going to church, but there's stuff holding you back, whether it's externally or internally. Internally, I know there can be doubt and worry. It's a lot of issues surrounding trust. Putting your faith in something is a big step. And while this is the best decision you can ever make, it's also a big decision. And that might weigh heavily on your mind. And there's outside factors like what society thinks of faith and Christianity, that you, by believing in it, you're hateful, judgmental, stupid. Well, if you need encouragement, we'll go ahead and get that out of the way right now. I'm rooting for you, praying for you, and hoping that you do make that decision to accept Christ. And not just me, all of Christendom is hoping for that. This chat is hoping for that. We all want to see you succeed in that, because every soul saved is a victory, and you matter. For some reason, we matter. We don't understand it. We're seemingly insignificant beings on this earth, but we do matter to God enough that Christ got on that cross. So we want to see you make it, and knowing that the heavenly host will rejoice in your decision. And if that's not comfort enough, I don't know what else to tell you, buddy. But hopefully it's what you need to keep you going to the next step. And it would be awesome, even if you don't have enough time to stick around, but maybe come back and hang out with us and take part in this stream. If you were already a Christian and you just enjoy Christian topics or conversations, welcome to the chat as well. We're very much a small group minded stream that's very similar to a Wednesday night study group or a Sunday school. It's not just me on here, it's you as well. Get in the chat, be part of this show. Things that you have to say are interesting, and this group is small enough that if you put something in that chat, I'll read it and respond to it. So tell me where you think I'm right or where you think I'm wrong. What do you agree with or disagree with? What unique insight, perspective, or experience do you have that maybe we haven't considered or talked about yet? Maybe you want to just add on to something somebody else said. Share your opinion. Ask questions. I can't promise you that I'm going to know the answer to your questions, but we can at least talk about them. And hopefully point you in the right direction for an answer. Maybe somebody in the chat knows. With that said, Wednesday, folks, and Emmanuel Osorio is first in the chat. What's going on, sir? Back home. It's good to see you. Can't wait to learn tonight. I can't wait to learn alongside you. Veritex, rough week, remembering long-lost loved ones, going to say goodbye to wife's long-loved cat and a family in our church. The wife might lose the second of 2 feet. Sorry to hear that. Just like Emmanuel said, mirroring his words. Sorry to hear that. You know, it's funny. Church softball's getting ready to start up, and one of my good friends, uh, his mom, who has since passed away. She was a great lady. She was kind of the manager slash coach of the team, right? Me and another gentleman were running it. He was running it more at the time. I took over it later, but she was the one who sat there with the scorebook, and she would call. We would let her just do the lineups and everything. She was a hoot, and you didn't want to mess with her. And she's one of my favorite people. But she had lost both of her legs by the time I'd met her from cancer, and ultimately she did. I don't think it was cancer. I'm trying to remember what it was, but I do remember she got sick, and it was unfortunate to see her go so early. But she raised two amazing sons, and I know that she's proud of her hand in their development. But yeah, she managed to get, but just to say that she managed to get along just fine. She had two prosthetics, would walk around the uh, from the parking lot to the ball field. It's not an easy landscape to traverse, but she got along just fine. Hopefully the lady in your church is able to get a prosthesis and use it, and just continue to be mobile, because a big freedom that we often take for granted is our ability to move and travel, whether it's by car or just walk around our own house. You take that stuff for granted. You understand once you don't have that ability, uh, how difficult, how trapped you feel. So, yeah. As far as the cat, sorry about your cat there. We've been through a bit of a loss as a group with animals dying, and we know that they do leave an impact on our lives. I've got a great kitty that's still catching mice, and I don't know how we're gonna replace him when he's gone. He's just an all around solid cat, and a couple of dogs as well. But yeah. Um, Emmanuel, excellent trip, great people, strong faith over there and coming back. I love our infrastructure compared to what I had to go through in Mexico. Still can't believe the smaller countries had better roads than Mexico had. And, being a bigger country with lots more folks. I don't know how they do it. How do they do? But who's going to pay for the roads, as the meme says? Glad to see you two here, though. We had a great guest on Monday. Connor look, you don't have to agree with everything he said. But I just enjoy the way that he went about explaining it. And I'm a tough interview in the fact that sometimes I talk too much. I wish I didn't. I get carried away. I don't know if it's because I really like the sound of my own voice or whatever, but I'm always kind of introspective about that afterwards. I'm like, man, I don't think I let him talk enough. But we were under kind of a time constraint. He only had an hour to give us, and hang on. He only had an hour to give us, and we didn't even actually get through all the questions I wanted to ask him. I wanted to talk about primacy of the Pope and papal infallibility and stuff like that. There were still some things that I want to talk about. If we do have a conclave, I would love to get him back on to kind of talk about how that works. Again, Connor was a great guest, like pretty much every other guest I've put on here. But again, it's good to see that kind of attitude and mentality when you're talking about your faith, and not worried about, I got to put other faiths down in order to explain why mine is great. You don't. If you've got something worth buying into, it should sell itself. And one of the things that I go through this on when I'm reading Twitter, and I love the people the networking of some of the personalities that I've met through there with other Paul, Thaddeus, Christian Mario. Y'all know those people for me talking about them and them being on the show. And I've met them through Twitter. But what I also hate so much is how we talk down about it. And it seems like it seems like, and it's not them actually, it's when you're on Christian Twitter, and some of you might understand this because you've been there. It feels like it's so much of us just talking because we want attention. We're gonna say something that we know is not gonna change anybody's mind. We're just saying our opinion out there. We know we're gonna get fighting in the comments, and we know we're gonna get a lot of attention from it. And I don't understand the desire to do that. And that drives people to say the most hyperbolic things, and it doesn't help us. We end up looking so stupid. We certainly, and not to say that we are a united front, but we should be united in our faith in Christ, but we don't worry about that at all. And we put each other down, and we call each other, all sorts of names, and we don't. And I get that you don't want too much ecumenism, possibly in these, in your own faith. But the idea that you're not going to have any type of relationship, positive relationship with anybody who doesn't agree with you 100% on things is it's just difficult to see. It's contrary to what we should be doing. I think a lot of these arguments are around issues that probably don't have the same impact on our salvation as other more important things. I guess I've said this before. I think that the real important debates, I think, will probably surround the Eucharist, the Pope, infant versus believers' baptism, that kind of stuff. So, but that's not what they do. Everybody wants to argue about Mary, who has already fulfilled her her overall purpose on this earth, who we can look up to and honor, but instead we just argue about her, right? And so it's difficult. It's just difficult to see. It's disheartening at times. It makes me want to be like, man, I could just close Twitter and walk away from it. But I also don't. I also am spoiled on the thing. I do like getting news on about sports, and I do like, you come across some good folks in it. Still, it's just you gotta sift through a bunch of poo to find these gems. And I think some of these folks are really good, well-meaning people. It's just that they're caught us up in this desire to be important on Twitter, and that shouldn't be anybody's goal in life. All right. Um, Manuel said it's crabs in a bucket because you want that to pay for interactions. I don't know, but why though? Who cares? Like, it can't be that much. It's like, is that worth being terminally online? Not to me. And it is either farming for those Elon bucks, or some people just don't want to grow or change, although it's going to happen. I think some people just want to argue, and I get it as somebody who is quick to get into an argument and just want to just jump in there. But I'd rather just not have the environment there in the first place. If I could snap my fingers and get rid of social media, I would. Be great, because I think it's a lot less good than a lot less, or it's a lot more bad than good. Hey, I'm gonna go take care of something real quick. I'm only gonna be a minute. I will be right back. You guys just look at look at what we're gonna start with chapter 8, and appreciate that. We're gonna be talking about obedience to rulers, which can be a difficult thing in our current political climate. But let's look at that. And like I said, guys, I promise I'll be back in just a minute. So hold tight. Okay, I'm back. I told you it wouldn't take that long. All right. Okay, so obey rulers, right? A few months ago, maybe a couple years ago, when they were talking about the vaccine, this is a this is a difficult one for us to understand. Now, obviously, this does not mean if a ruler tells you to do something that is contrary to God's commandments that you have to listen to the ruler. We have biblical precedent that shows that the that's not what the case is. When we talk about Daniel, when we get to Daniel, the book of Daniel, we hear about his story, or Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, then you'll have the context there. But outside of that, render unto Caesar, as Christ said. And that can be a difficult thing, especially for us as Americans. Culturally, we are so independent and want to not obey that this can be a difficult thing to go and adhere to. Now, the argument can be made, and maybe this is a topic for further discussion. What Ecclesiastes 8 is going to get into is about, hang on. It's about monarchs, right? In kind of a totalitarian, authoritarian society, as opposed to what we have, constitutional republic or a representative democracy, or something like that. When we are actually part of the government, if you really boil it down to, the base level, we vote. We have rights that we are given to protest, and then part of that reason to protest is to make our voices heard. There are things that have been put in place. We are part of our government. So I think there's a little bit of leeway there that we're able to be given, but at the same time, it doesn't mean if the law is passed, the law is the law. And we're still supposed to obey that law in this land. So you can't say just because I don't like the guy, I'm going to do what I want to do and still be doing what God commands us to do. And again, that's a struggle. That's not just a struggle for you guys, I'm sure. Trust me, I struggle with that as well. If the government says give up your guns, that's going to be a difficult one for people to listen to. How would you act if that would be the case? Would you repent afterwards? Did you think you did the right thing? Life's not life's going to come at you with some tough decisions to make. I'm not saying that that's going to happen. But what if it did? Or maybe what if there's something else became a law that you didn't want to listen to? The other hot button topic is taxes. And again, we're going to go over Ecclesiastes 8 tonight, but we've also got Christ saying in his own words, taxes. What is that to me? What is that to God? That's money. It's a tool. It's something that's earthly. So pay your damn taxes. You don't have to like it. You don't have to do so cheerfully. And you can say that it's corrupt. But again, when we look at things, what is God concerned with? Think God's concerned with materialistic things? No. No, he's not. Not in that sense. But let's get into Ecclesiastes 8 tonight in our reading and see what King Solomon has to say. Obey rulers. Now, this is funny because Solomon is king. Seems like it's a little. I feel like there's there's a conflict of interest here. Anyway, let's get past that. Let's see what they have to say, because this is wisdom given by God, right? Who is like the wise man, and who knows the interpretation of a matter? A man's wisdom illumines his face and causes his stern face to beam. I counsel you to keep the command of the king because of the oath before God by which you swore loyalty to him. Do not be in a hurry to get out of his presence. Do not join in a malevolent manner, for the king will do whatever he pleases. For the word of the king is authoritative and powerful. And who will say to him, "What are you doing?" Whoever keeps and observes a royal command will experience neither trouble nor misery, for a wise heart will know the proper time and appropriate procedure. For there is a proper time and appropriate procedure for every delight, though mankind's misery and trouble lies heavily upon him who rebels against the king. For no one knows what will happen, so who can tell him how and when it will happen? There is no man who has power and authority over the wind to restrain the wind, nor does he have authority over the day of death. There is no discharge from service during time of war, and evil will not rescue those who actively seek to practice it. All this I have seen while applying my mind to every deed that is done under the sun. There is a time in which one man has exercised power over others to their detriment. So then, I have seen the wicked buried, those who used to go in and out of the holy place, but did not thereby escape their doom. And they are praised in spite of their evil, and soon forgotten in the city where they did such things. This too is futility, vanity, emptiness. Because the sentence against an evil act is not executed quickly, the hearts of the sons of men are fully set to do evil. Though a sinner does evil 100 times in his life, seemingly is prolonged in spite of his wickedness, still I know that it will be well with those who reverently fear God, who fear and worship him openly, realizing his omnipresence and his power. But it will not be well for the evil man, nor will he lengthen his days like a shadow, because he does not fear God. There is a meaningless and futile thing which is done on the earth, that is, there are righteous men whose gain is as though they were evil, and evil men whose gain is though they were righteous. I say that this too is futility, meaningless, vain. Then I commanded pleasure and enjoyment, because a man without God has no better thing under the sun than to eat and to drink and to be merry. For this will stand by him in his toil, the days of his life which God has given him under the sun. When I applied to my mind to know wisdom and to see the activities of mankind that take place upon the earth, how some men seem to sleep neither day nor night, and I saw all the work of God, I concluded that man cannot discover the work that is done under the sun. Even though man may labor in seeking, he will not discover. And more than that, though a wise man thinks and claims he knows, he will not be able to find it out. No real footnotes, so to speak, but very interesting. St. Anthony. What about St. Anthony? Thad, welcome to the show, by the way, Thad. And Alex, I don't know if I said hi, but hello to both of you. All right. Obey rulers, who is like the wise man and who knows the interpretation of a matter. A man's wisdom illuminates his face and causes his stern face to beam. Who is like the wise man? Are you? Am I? Are we wise enough to be able to figure things out? Maybe to a degree. And maybe when we do, a man's wisdom illumines his face and causes his stern face to beam. Makes us happy when we know something. This is what he tells us. I counsel you to keep the command of the king because of the oath before God by which you swore loyalty to him. Now, part of this is specifically some of this might specifically apply to Israel, which Israel, even if you think that, even if you are adamant that Israel is the church now. There is no king. Now, maybe there's an argument if you're Catholic that that's the Pope. Orthodox might say that that's the archbishop. What are their archbishops? Patriarchs? I think it's patriarchs. Yaks, where are you at? Daggone it. But they don't have that title, and that's not really their role. They're leading the church, not a kingdom. So it's difficult to really find application there. There's other things that have to do with, there are other commands in the New Testament that seem to be more applicable to the authority given, to the people in those positions. So, oath to God, if you're faithful to God, if you believe in him, been baptized, all that stuff, there is an expectation that you will respect authority. And that might be part of God trying to show, look, if you can't respect authority for someone who doesn't have control of all the things, how are you going to respect my authority? And I control everything. All the things in your life. Every single thing. Right? Every single thing exists because of God. Every single thing obeys God. So perhaps, leaving things, the expectation that we respect authority should be something that we understand to a degree. This is part of the this is part of where I say it's difficult for libertarians in this respect to understand that, while life is given to us with our ability to choose on whether we're going to do the right thing or the wrong thing, ultimately, we're still beholden to the law of God, his commandments. And we'll be judged accordingly. So you're doing all this stuff right now. And if you don't think it's wrong, you think you're going to get away with it, it's cool. God's going to be all right with it. And there's no sense of regret or contrition. I don't feel good for you. I don't feel good for you. Don't make excuses. That's the first step into complacency, as you start making excuses. And I'm just as guilty as that as anybody else. But as somebody who does or has and does, it's not something we need to be doing. It's a bad first step that leads to dark places. Do not be in a hurry to get out of his presence. Do not join him in a malevolent manner, for the king will do whatever he pleases. You might take that as protesting, but I think the malevolent matter is more of the subversive. How do I subvert his authority? Not that, hey, I'm going to protest. Again, it's something there's a purpose behind protesting, to get things out of there. The government that represents us, making our voices heard as a constituency, as a way of changing minds. I think this is less that and more of a subversion. How do I subvert the authority of the king? Maybe I want to cause rebellion, a coup d'etat, something like that. That, I think, the malevolent matter is what that part is getting at. The king will do whatever he pleases, as we know. And Solomon and David did their thing, but Saul's the real example of that. Did whatever he wanted. and was absolutely punished for it too. That's the thing. That's the thing. Do what you want. Doesn't mean that there are not consequences to it. I know you're going to hate it. The whole freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom of consequence. Freedom of life does not mean freedom from consequences. And if you don't like that, I'm sorry to say that it is a truism of life in the universe that God created. There is judgment. There are rules. There is punishment. And we need to be mindful of that. And you can't go through life just thinking that it doesn't matter what you do because you'll be forgiven. That is not a good attitude. And that certainly doesn't sound like a person who is ashamed of what they do. That's when they do what they're not supposed to. Doesn't sound like a person who's actually sorry for what they do. And it certainly doesn't sound like somebody who is trying to improve who they are. And it's very common. There's a very common thing that people say is God doesn't send people to hell. People send themselves there. Which road are we on? Whose path are we walking in? For the word of a king is authoritative and powerful, and who will say to him, "What are you doing?" The only times people are supposed to say that are when you're an advisor and that's kind of your job, or when prophets come and show it. And those guys are messengers of God. That's the only time you got the authority to do it. Is God's like, hey, you need to check your boy. Nathaniel, go talk to David. Samuel, go talk to Saul. Get them straightened out. Whoever keeps and observes the royal command will experience neither trouble nor misery, for a wise heart will know the proper time and appropriate procedure. Just look, go along to get along when it comes to worldly authority that is not in conflict with what you've been told. Or, I'm sorry, that is not in conflict with what you've been told by God that you need to do. Being cruel is not something that we're supposed to do. We're not necessarily supposed to revel in our duty when God tells us to do a thing. But we need to at least respect it. And definitely do it, right? For there is a proper time and appropriate procedure for every delight, though mankind's misery and trouble lies heavily upon him who rebels against the king. And this is really just a reiteration of rebellion, and we've seen it throughout, leading up to this point, with the narratives with people who rebel. It has not gone well for them. Do you know? Can you think of a leader in Israel at this point who rebelled against the original king or the sitting king at that time, and it was done by God's command? I can't think of one. And you can't say David, because David refused. David was just running for his life. David had been anointed king. But even when David had been, and he was prophesied, everybody knew he was going to be the next king. And he had the opportunity to end it by killing Saul. But that would have been by David's decision and not God's. And David kind of puts things into perspective about that. It's not my place to kill this man. It's not my place to remove this man from his office because God put him there. So unless he tells me I need to do it, I'm not going to do it. God didn't tell him to do it. He didn't do it. For no one knows what will happen, so who can tell him how and when it will happen? Things go according to God's plan. Shouldn't see ourselves as the saviors from God's plan. We can't change it. Don't ever be that full of yourself. There's no man, and here you go, there's no man who has the power and authority over the wind to restrain the wind. Yeah, you can't control Mother Nature. You can't control the universe. We only got one being able to do that. There's no man who has power and authority over the. Or wait, I just read that. Sorry. Nor does he have authority over the day of death. There is no discharge from service during time of war, and evil will not rescue those who actively seek to practice it. I like that. Can't control the wind. Can't save himself. Jeroboam was doing so under God's instruction. And it was part of Rehoboam's punishment. And Jeroboam did things as God instructed until he got in charge. And then stopped doing what God asked. I'm going to do my own thing now. How'd that work out for him? But that's a good citation there, Nernath, because that is actually a rebellion. But that was one commanded by God. So it's like, okay, so can't command the wind, can't even save your own life. You can't keep yourself from dying. Eventually, you're gonna die. And then I love the imagery here. There is no discharge from service during time of war. You've got to figure this out. And just being evil will not rescue you from it. And evil will not rescue those who actively seek to practice it. You've got a duty. You've got a commitment. And breaking that oath, breaking those commands, it's not going to, maybe some temporary joy and relief. Maybe it makes you feel, do you feel in charge? Does this give you power over me? Maybe it makes you feel in charge for a bit. But eventually you're as addicted to that thing. And it has control over you. Hang on. All this I've seen while applying my daughter is acting a fool right now, and so wife's trying to find out if my wife needs me to go in there and regulate now or if it can wait until after I'm done. We'll find out. All this I've seen while applying my mind to every deed that is done under the sun. There is a time in which one man has exercised power over others to their detriment. I think this is Solomon. I don't know what he's referring back to, but this is him reminiscing. So then I have seen the wicked buried, those who used to go in and out of the holy place, but did not thereby escape their doom. and they are praised in spite of their evil and soon forgotten in the city where they did such things. This too is vanity, emptiness. This is kind of a shout out to people who feel like, oh, this person escaped justice. In this life, maybe they did. You don't know that for certain, but yeah, I mean, in the public eye, maybe they did go in and out of the holy place, but they didn't escape their doom. And maybe the public loved them, in fact, even in spite of the fact that they were evil. Or maybe they forgot about them. But that's kind of the point here. Our time on earth is fleeting. Our impact on this earth is fleeting. Even those people who had impacts that have sent ripples through history for hundreds of years or thousands of years, eventually that time is up. Eventually this world ends in one way or another. Now, if it's recreated, and however you view the recreation or whatever, the world as we know it is going to end. Something, and all this stuff is going to be meaningless. So, yes, maybe you were denied justice in this life. Maybe you were denied justice in this life. But we haven't gotten to the Sermon on the Mount. So Jesus has something to say on that. But even if you don't, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And it's okay to be upset about it, but at the same time, don't perseverate over it. Don't let it make you bitter. Don't make it turn you away from God and do evil things. Don't. Don't let worldly things affect your spiritual eternity. Temporary worldly things versus who you are after this life. Because the sentence against an evil act is not executed quickly, the hearts of the sons of men are fully set to do evil. Though a sinner does evil 100 times and his life seemingly is prolonged in spite of his wickedness, still I know that it will be well with those who reverently fear God. Just because other people are doing the wrong thing, and maybe they are enjoying life because of it. Maybe they are one step ahead of everybody. Maybe they got something over on everybody. Just because they're doing it, it is not an excuse for you to be able to do it yourself. And though that might feel like that they're not getting punished, it might seem like, and maybe it is, they're not facing any consequences to their actions. Eventually they will, even if they don't before they die. Remember that for yourself as well. Just because bad things aren't happening to you doesn't necessarily mean it's okay for you to keep doing whatever bad thing you're doing. But I will hazard to say that if you are doing something, just out of my own life experience, that if you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing, there's generally consequences in the wake, right? Maybe it's doing damage inside of you. Maybe it's doing damage to the people around you. You don't know. But whether, again, regardless of whether it does or doesn't, it's not an excuse. Seeing other people do the wrong thing just because other people drink to excess all the time, just because other people look at porn, just because other people cheat on their spouses, just because other people cheat on their taxes. Just because other people lie, cheat, and steal does not mean it's okay for you to. Just because they get away with it does not mean it's okay for you to. Still, so repeat what he said. Still, I know that it will be well with those who reverently fear God, who fear and worship him openly, realizing his omnipresence and his power. But it will not be well for the evil man, nor will he lengthen his days like a shadow, because he does not fear God. Well, just because these people are getting ahead doesn't mean that their doom isn't eventually coming. There is a meaningless and futile thing which is done on the earth that is, there are righteous men whose gain is this, oh, they were evil, meaning they don't get ahead like you feel like they should because they're doing the right thing. And evil men whose gain is though they were righteous, meaning they get ahead, but they shouldn't because they've done the wrong thing. I say that this too is futility and meaningless and vain. It doesn't matter. For the same reason we've been talking about this entire chapter. This is worldliness. We are on the earth. Then I commended pleasure and enjoyment, because a man without God has no better thing under the sun than to eat and to drink and be merry. For this will stand by him in his toil through the days of his life, which God has given him under the sun. Yeah, go ahead. Do whatever you will. If you don't believe in God, if you don't put your faith in God, if you're not going to obey God, well, might as well do whatever the hell you want to. Live it up. Be your own king. Do your own thing. Make your own decisions, regardless of what you're commanded to do. You answer to nobody. Might as well. Because the aftermath of that, you're not going to enjoy. All this stuff, all this enjoyment you have is nothing. And it's interesting because we've been doing Ecclesiastes only for a couple of weeks. And the sermon at church this past weekend referenced Ecclesiastes. And the preacher was talking about Ecclesiastes and, what is it? All this stuff. The only reason anything matters is because of God. If you don't have God, you don't have anything. And since you have, and if you don't have God and you don't think, if you don't have him in your life, might as well give yourself over to everything. That's not for you guys. It's not what I want for anybody. But you guys here listening to me, it's not for you. Follow Christ. Believe and be baptized. Repent. Help your fellow man out. Be obedient. Love God and love your fellow man. These are important things to do. Have real meaning in your life. Because in your next life, in the hereafter, you'll enjoy what's there waiting for you. Take advantage of the gift you've been given. Salvation is real. Forgiveness is real. Grace is real. And it is eternal. And limitless. Emmanuel Osorio, just like rocks get hit with water over time and erode and turn to sand. Exactly. So much of Ecclesiastes is built on that foundation. God and without God. And without God, it's this. So do the people so do the people in soul if we don't take care of it. Exactly, Emmanuel. When I applied this, so the last couple verses. When I applied my mind to know wisdom and to see the activities of mankind that take place upon the earth, how some men seem to sleep neither day nor night, and I saw all the work of God, I concluded that man cannot discover the work that is done under the sun. Even though man may labor in seeking, he will not discover, and more than that, though a wise man thinks and claims he knows, he will not be able to find it out. I think what the what this these two passages are trying to tell us is that we work and we work and we work and we try to do and we all the things that we do, and we might be wise, we might be foolish, doesn't matter. We're not going to know the ultimate purpose behind all of this. Even if we think we do, even if we tell people, even if you're convinced, you're not going to know. And I take that saying seriously because some people think to be convinced they have the answer. And I'm content with just saying that there's a mystery that I will not understand until God thinks it's time for me to understand it. So very good passage. Though we get kind of away from the obedience part, but I guess the obedience thing, obey rulers, obey the law, obey God, or if we are taught to obey God, obey His rules, take them to heart, apply it in our lives. All right. Any rule coming from a king that does not contradict those rules has to be respected and observed as well. It needs to be in our nature to take orders. It needs to be in our nature to submit to a degree because heaven does not have a constitution. Heaven is God's in charge, just like he's in charge well else. So, and maybe that's too much for some folks. Maybe some folks don't want to be a part of that. I hope that's none of you. But that's also the reality. Anyway. All right, so Emmanuel Nernaeth, Thad the Man, Alex Moore, and Veritax. Thank you guys for being in the chat tonight. I appreciate those of you who were able to catch Connor and that live stream. Thank you for being there and asking your questions. Don't forget to like and share. Carl, we know and love. Woo! Don't forget to like and share the episode with anybody you think might benefit from it. Still would like to see this channel. I still want to see growth on this channel. Though I love having you guys on here and it being very, very much just us in some respect. I think there's at least room for this to remain a small group and grow a great deal. Grow a great deal. I would love to have this stream build up to where we're going at an even slower pace because we get caught up in so much good and constructive discussions about what we're talking about. But again, God's will, right, folks? Anyway, so if you want to support the show, I haven't said this in a while. If you want to support the show, the way to support the show is share it. Let's talk about it. Invite other people to it. if you think it'll be helpful. It's not for everybody, obviously. And I'm not the best host out there. There's better folks out there than me. But we're still doing it, and I'm still here. And I'm counting my blessings that you guys are here as well. So thank you guys for being part of the chat. Everybody who is not a part of the chat but listening, hey, I appreciate you showing up too. It's not that I don't hold it against you that you don't participate in the chat. I'm just glad that you're here. What does the manual say? Don't worry, you're going to grow exponentially soon, brother. There's a lot more dudes who will hear the words in this matter. Hey, if I do, I do. If I don't, it's okay. It's okay. It is. Again, the fact that Nico started going to church and was talking about being baptized and all that other stuff, that made this stream and however many episodes I do that, however long I do this, worth it right there. And Emmanuel saying that this is helping you grow and helping you improve yourself makes it worth it. For Thad, Carl, Nernaev, Veritax, if this helps you guys in your faith, for the folks listening, it's already doing what I wanted it to do. It's already worth the effort. I care about you guys. I care about the folks I argue with because I'm so frustrated and because of how wrong I think they are. I care about guys who I yell at, make fun of, or whatever because they don't believe in God and that's they think that they think that making fun of people who believe is great. I care about them too, because I want them to change. I don't want to see them send themselves to hell. I don't want to see that for them. That's a permanent mistake. Born out of pride. But this is a great audience, and I appreciate you guys for making this worth it. Whether you're in the chat or not. To everybody who's catching this on replay, I care about you too. For everybody who's catching this on replay, hey, thank you for watching. Sorry I missed you. I hope to catch you live sometime soon. Should be streaming tomorrow. Everybody have a good night. And God bless. Ooh, wrong one.